Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. It's been another fantastic week. By fantastic, I mean, I'm really, really tired. Oh, it's been another really fantastic week. And by fantastic, I guess what I really mean is I have found some really great ways to let off my aggression. For example, I made spaghetti. I wrote down my feelings. I've been setting morning intentions. I got a bruise and a mosh pit at a rap show. Talk about, that's what I like to see. Fantastic. But today, you know what today is. It's Thursty Thursday. Happy April 18th, y'all. We got 2 more months till Juneteenth. That's on the 17th. It doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is the musicians I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about Japanese rock band Dir en Grey. The reason that I want to talk to you about Dir en Grey is that Dir en Grey was a huge pivotal point for culture and music in the early 2000s. So I want to talk to you today about why Dir en Grey is a cultural point of contention, not only for Japan but for the United States as well. For one, Dir en Grey was a group of Japanese men who were playing rock music and wearing dresses, and it wasn't like a historic stunt. It was more so an act of artistic expression. These men were dressing how they wanted to, wearing makeup and making their hair huge. I mean, visual kei is, for an American, a really bizarre genre, and it shouldn't be, because visual kei has a little bit to do with dress up and a lot to do with music, but that's all hair metal. Everything the 80s taught us, I don't know. Americans have a rough time with it. I digress. So one, their clothing choices made Dir en Grey a huge cultural influencer. The music also is always evolving, ever changing. One album, you don't know what it's gonna sound like from the next, but they're all very easily identifiable. Once you know an album, you know it. And the third thing that makes Dir en Grey a cultural powerhouse is the shock and awe factor that, namely Kyo, who is on my shirt, really brought as far as performance. So, the way they dress. Dir en Grey has changed the way they looked a few times. They're still the same people, of course, but they've gone through several different phases through their different albums, which is almost 2 decades now. It's 19 years. Oh, my kitty. I see my cat. Oh, she's perfect. So, when they came out in 99, they were all in dresses with either blonde or red or blue hair, and they were jamming their little hearts out, and they were sort of you could tell they were really inspired by ex-Japan and also American rock. When I say that their music is always changing, I mean when Gauze and Macabre came out, they were straight J-rock, and everything made sense. They weren't really pushing too many boundaries other than just being the hot new visual kei band on the scene. Somewhere along the way, they really, really found what their niche was. It just so happened that they have so many different talents, that they can make so many different types of music. So Vulgar hits in 02, 03, and right after that, Withering to Death comes out. Vulgar, which was still sort of a branding album, when it came out, it hit 6th on Japanese music Billboard charts. So Withering to Death comes out in 05, sometime around then. The sound is totally different. There's ballads, there's slow songs, and then there's some really, really hype, oh yeah, this is the Dir en Grey that we know kind of songs. And that only hit 8th place in Japanese billboards, which is surprising because that's one of my favorite albums. I couldn't find Withering to Death, but I did find all of the other Dir en Grey albums I have. So Withering to Death came out, and it was just so wildly different from what they had been doing, which was just J-rock, visual kei, with some really, really abysmal, or for lack of a better term, macabre topics. I mean, we're talking about abuse, neglect, murder, all kind of, so Dir en Grey gets progressively harder and harder, and also continues to define themselves. So after Withering to Death came Marrow of a Bone. That was probably maybe one of their closest to metal albums. I think I had 1 or 2 songs on it that were kind of melodic, but for the most part it was straight palm muting and a lot of really angry screaming. But I definitely jammed to that album on repeat for a long time. Now, it reached 7th in the Billboards over in Japan, but it actually reached 8th over here in the United States, which is a huge deal. I mean, like Billboard Heat Seekers chart. Heat Seekers is a little bit different than the Billboard charts because what it does is it looks at basically trendsetters. And so for Deer and Grey to get on an album that isn't even characteristically to Deer and Grey, for them to get that sort of recognition was a huge reason that they ended up like doing Kerrang, Wacken, a bunch of different. They went on tour with like OTEP and Korn and went and did a bunch of like they just like blew up over here in the United States. So Marrow of a Bone really shocked the system of Deer and Grey fans, and it also caught the attention of several people before Spotify, mind you, before Spotify. So in 2008, Ouroboros comes out and it reaches number 1 on the Heat Seekers chart. Ouroboros, do I have that one? Is this one Ouroboros? Oh snap, y'all, how cute is this? So this is from middle school, I guess. So this is from way back when. But here goes Ouroboros. And when I opened up this case, I also found the Marrow of a Bone. The album cover was like this too, but for some reason I have everything sitting right here. Look, they even put words on it. That's insane. How can you even read those? Are these? Anyway, we'll just put that back. So what, they came out, they said in 2008 they hit Ouroboros. That did phenomenal. After that they did Dum Spiro Sparrow, which means as I breathe I hope. And it delved a little bit more into, I mean, like we got a little bit deeper into this, not necessarily psychedelic metal, but ethereal storytelling metal. So live. Honestly, Deer and Grey is the reason today I'm super into like symphonic quartet, is because of their version of Amon off of Dum Spiro Sparrow. After that, they put out 2 more albums, which brings us to 2018. A phenomenal person in my life got me the 2018 Deer and Grey. And to be real with you, I have not super listened to this album, but it's really weird and creepy and cool. And it's just very interesting to see the similarities. Very cool. So this is a lyric book. I really haven't dug into this. This was a gift for me for my birthday last month. So the third thing that makes Deer and Grey a cultural phenomenon is their shock and awe value. This dude here, Kyo, has been known to spit oatmeal out on camera and make it look like vomit. He's been known to pop blood packets on stage and spray them all over the fans. He's been known to scream until his voice gave out. He's been known to cut the inside of his mouth and let blood drip down his chin onto his chest. He's been known to do a lot of really, really intense things that have contributed to the characterization of his stage presence. We're talking about a band with lyrics about blood, fires, about losing family, about people dying, about betrayal, about loneliness, and those aren't necessarily lighthearted topics. So when I think about the type of person who writes music like this, I think that's a pretty healthy outlet for some really heavy emotions. To be totally real, back when I was first getting into Deer and Grey, I was struggling with a lot of things. I was struggling with loss in ways unimaginable to some of the people that I know. Deer and Grey sort of gave me not only an outlet to listen through, but inspiration for how to create art that said, I'm hurting inside, like, ouch. And to sort of like bleed that out in a way that wasn't hurting me any further, in a way where I really was taking things into my own hands and not just feigning for some fake power over myself. So in addition to Deer and Gray being the main reason that I'm into symphonic music, Deer and Gray is also the reason that I got into math metal, that I got into post-rock, that I got into other forms of rock music besides like Papa Roach. With nothing against Papa Roach, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying early 2000s came and went. We're past this now, right? And especially when their lyrics started focusing on the divine self, ancestral and spiritual practices, that was definitely a big movement that I went back to for reference. And now in so many ways I'm able to speak to myself and listen to myself, recognize what my needs are, and figure out how to solve whatever problem I'm having. And that's not to say that I don't enlist the help of friends and family. It is simply to say I have coping mechanisms now. So go out there and listen to some rock music, you crazy kids. Learn yourself a thing or two. This has been Jade with the Black Creatures, and I hear in the Midwest we all talk like weather people. So stay tuned for your scheduled programming or whatever. Also, Kyo is like punk as hell. He never really did well in school, but because he wasn't interested in it, he didn't like hanging out with anyone, not the cool kids, not the nerds. He said that he like could never really feel like he got close to anyone. And then for his high school entrance exams, he just turned in a blank paper. And so after that, he like didn't go to high school. He chose to drop out and went into being the frontman for a series of different bands under various names. However, today we know him as Kyo from Deer and Gray. And yeah, all I can say is I'm really thankful that I found them. Check us out next week. We got another Thursty Thursday coming up. We've also got just a lot in store in general for the Black Creatures, but we'll talk later. See ya.